Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of your Stats in AP Biology activity. This section we're going to be looking at standard error of the mean. So standard error of the mean bars, or what we call SEM bars, are helpful tools in determining if there's a statistically significant difference between two sets of data. For example, a control versus a test group. Typically in biology, data will be represented with a bar graph, and then the SEM bars, which look like that letter I, the capital letter I, will be drawn as shown in figure 3. So this is figure 3, and I'm going to label this data set A and data set B. So this is a regular bar graph, which you're probably familiar with, and then this right here, these are SEM bars. So just those lines right there that cross your bar graph, those are the SEM bars. And so the first question is asking you, in which set do the SEM bars appear to overlap? So the range of one SEM bar overlaps the other. You can see that there's a tiny gap in between these two here, whereas in set B, there is clear overlap in this section of the SEM bars and their range. To answer number 10, it would be in part B, or in group set B. So if the SEM bars overlap, we cannot say that there is a statistically significant difference between the two sets of data. So if they overlap, that means that the data, the true average of this group right here, is overlapping the true average of this one. The thing you've got to remember is that most of the times when we're doing these experiments, we are looking at a very small sample size. And so when you are trying to see if there's a difference between the control and the test group, what you need to do is include these SEM bars somewhere in this range. The SEM bar is telling us that somewhere in this range is the true average for this small sample of data that we have collected. So if the true average of this data overlaps the true average of this data, we cannot with confidence say that there is a difference between them. So in which data set of figure 3 can we say there is a statistically significant difference? In other words, our SEM bars do not overlap. That's going to be in set A. Because the SEM bars don't overlap, the true average of this data doesn't overlap the true average of that data from this small sample size that we've collected. On page 17, I had you guys enter in the presence of that Y chromosome in your Google form. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take that data and we are going to see, is there a statistically significant difference between the hand size of males versus females? So we're going to look at XX versus XY. I'm going to zoom in on this part, that way you guys can see it a little better. So along my x-axis, I've indicated which groups there are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my y-axis the length of the hand. Along the y-axis, I am going to indicate that there is a break in my data points. So in other words, there are 20 squares. I counted this earlier. There are 20 squares along the y-axis here. But the data that I'm going to be using is going to be greater. I may need to indicate a little bit more clearly where those data points, where those SEM bars are going to overlie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little mark here to indicate that there is a gap in the data. So although my y-axis starts at 0, the next line in my data, I'm going to put 16. So 16 centimeters. And then I'm going to count by 5, so 2, 4, I'm going to count by 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and then I'm going to indicate 17 centimeters, 2, 4, 6, 8, 18 centimeters, 2, 4, 6, 8, 19 centimeters, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we don't quite get to 20, And your data, keep in mind that your data is going to be different from other classes, simply because the amount of data we had collected to that point was different than what we had. So I've collected the data and I found that the female mean is 18 centimeters. And when we look at the standard error of the mean, when we look at our SEM bars, we are going to be at 0.8. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and draw the female average. So right at 18 centimeters, I'm going to go ahead and draw my bar graph. I am not going to shade in this bar graph, because then when I try to draw the SEM bars, it's not going to show. Now, once you've drawn your average, now you've got to draw the top of your SEM bar for the female. So the top of the SEM bar for the female is going to be 18 plus the 0.8. So I'm just going to go ahead and come on up to 0.8, draw the top of my SEM bar, and then bring it down. And just to make sure that there's no confusion, I'm going to go ahead and write 18.8 as the top of my SEM bar. Now I'm going to draw the bottom of the SEM bar for the female, and that's going to go down to 18 minus 0.8, so that's 17.2. And there is the information for the female hand size. Now for the male hand size, that's the XY, the average size was 18.9 centimeters. And then when we look at our SEM, it is at 0.8 as well. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw the male bar graph coming up to 18.9. So there's the mean. And now to draw the top of the SEM bar for the males, I'm going to take 0.8 and I'm going to add it to the 18.9. So the top of the SEM bar is going to go to 19.7, 2, 4, 6, so 19.7. And now I'm going to draw the bottom of the SEM bar, and that's going to go down to 18.1. And again, I'm writing these in so that there's no question or confusion as to whether or not, or to where the SEM bar was supposed to go to. Now when you write your conclusion for this, you have to include the words statistically significant. And because the SEM bars are overlapping, our conclusion would sound like this. There's no statistical difference in hand size between male and female. And you need to justify this in your conclusion. You know this. You know there's no statistical difference because the SEM bars overlap. Please don't forget this sentence. It's very, very important. The SEM bars overlap. Did I say do not? I hope I didn't. Okay, there's no statistical difference in the hand size between male and female because the SEM bars overlap. Make sure you include information about the SEM bars and make sure you include the information about statistical. Thanks for watching. I'm going to make one more video for your practice problems, but I hope that this helps. See you guys later.